This is the best suspense experience movie in Hollywood, and from the first 10 minutes of the movie, the suspense fills up and keeps the audience hooked until the end. This is a psychological game starring genius director David Fincher Island and Oscar-winning actor Michael Douglas. Hugo is a billionaire. Although he wears a famous watch and lives in a mansion, there is only one butler in the huge house to take care of his life. Due to his childhood, Hugo witnessed his father's suicide by jumping off a building, which led to his solitary personality. It seemed that apart from being busy making money every day, there was nothing that could arouse his interest. His wife also chose to divorce him a few years ago. This day is Yuga's birthday. The younger brother who has not met for a long time voluntarily invited Yuga to have a meal and arranged for the special service of Lao Hai Di to celebrate Yuga's birthday. Happy birthday to you. Afterwards, he gave his brother an invitation card from the consumer entertainment company CRS and specifically instructed Hugo to make sure to call the number on it, as you will experience unimaginable joy. At night, his ex-wife also called to bless him, but Hugo appeared very impatient. Not only because his ex-wife had remarried, but also because his father committed suicide by jumping off a building at the age of 48, sitting alone in an empty room, which reminded him of the invitation letter his younger brother had given him. The next day, Yuga arrived at the headquarters of CRS, which didn't look formal. Not only was the company still renovating, but Jim, the person in charge of Yuga, was also very unconventional. He was holding a mixed grain pancake purchased from a Chinese restaurant downstairs. Jim told Yuga that in order to join the club, he must first undergo a series of tests, including psychological tests, physical tests, and financial status. After passing the test, the company will tailor a game for Yuga, and the game content and gameplay are confidential. Yuga can choose to terminate the game at any time during the game process, and the cost can also be experienced first. Payment can be made after satisfaction. This innovative model has also successfully sparked Yuga's interest. After a whole day of testing, Yuga has signed the same book for participating in the game. Next, all he needs to do is go back and wait for their approval before officially starting. After the game was over, Yuga came to the bar to drink. During this time, he heard two people talking about the experience of CRS, which seemed to be two old players. So he went up to chat and said that he had just joined CRS, wanting to know what kind of game CRS provided. The two of them heard that Yuga's game had not started yet. In order to maintain Yuga's gaming experience, they did not tell him the game content, but enviously expressed that they wanted to have such a magical experience again. This statement made Yuga even more curious, but the next day at the company meeting, Yuga received a call from CRS, who told him that your membership review had not been approved. After speaking, he hung up the phone. This made Yuga very angry. Just as his appetite was lifted, he inexplicably extinguished it for me. On the way home, he called his brother to ask what was going on in this shit club. But just as the car pulled to the door of his house, he saw a corpse lying on the ground in the same posture as his father who jumped off a building to commit suicide. Yuga approached the body and turned over to see a clown, a puppet. Yuga moved the clown into the house and found a key in his mouth with the CRS logo on it. Didn't he fail the review? Yuga wants to pry open the clown's mouth and see if there are any clues inside. Suddenly, the host on TV behind him began to roast about Brother Chiyu. Are you going to spend the rest of the event crying at that closure's mouth? Originally, the other party observed Yuga's every move through the camera in the clown's eyes. The host told Yuga that receiving the key means the game has started. You need to actively discover the function of the key, and in the future, you will receive more game props. Yuga didn't expect CRS to come up with such a novel way of communication, which made him look forward to the game again. The next day, Yuga flew to another city by plane. Because the head of the branch in this city, Lao Do, had lost a large amount of money in an investment, he decided to personally go and dismiss the other party. Old Do was a friend of Yuji's father for many years, constantly playing emotional cards with him, but Yuga still showed no mercy. For him, the performance of the company is the most important. Just as he was about to present the termination agreement to Mr. Do, he found that his briefcase suddenly couldn't be opened. Thinking of last night's incident, he took out the key from CRS but still couldn't open his briefcase, so he had to postpone the matter. I guess this is your today. My lawyers will be in touch with you. Yuga was supposed to have dinner with his younger brother tonight, but he didn't arrive yet. Just as Yuga was about to leave, he collided with the waiter Jin Jia, and the wine in his hand spilled all over Yuga's body. Jean Jia kept apologizing, but Yuga was angry at the moment and didn't give Jean Jia a good face. The restaurant manager fired Jean Jia on the spot. The manager apologized and stated that tonight's meal was free of charge. However, as soon as Yuga sat down, a waiter threw the bill onto Yuji's table. After Yuga opened the bill and glanced at it, he immediately chased out of the restaurant, found Jean Jia, and asked if the other party had anything to hand over to him. Jean didn't give you a good face. You just caused me to be fired, and now you're asking me for something. At this moment, a drunk suddenly went into shock and fainted in front of the two of them. Jean Jia immediately stepped forward to give the drunk first aid and asked Yugo to call an ambulance. Originally, Yugo didn't want to pay attention and thought it was arranged by the game. That person must have been pretending. Jean Jia glared at Yugo, foaming at everyone and experiencing urinary incontinence. How could it be just pretending? So Yuga could only pick up the phone and prepare to call for an ambulance. At this moment, a nearby police car happened to pass by. Yuga quickly stopped the police car and the ambulance arrived in time. The police called for the ambulance and carried away the unconscious person, but the police asked Yuga and Jinjia to go to the hospital together to take notes. On the way to the hospital, Yugo explained to Jinjia that the reason he just wanted to see her was because someone left a note for her, which said not to let her leave. Jinjia feels that Yugo is inexplicable. Quickly, the car arrived at the hospital. The paramedics had just lifted the patient out of the car when the lights suddenly went out. Immediately after, everyone around them ran away without a trace. Yugo instantly understood that it was indeed a fun game of CRS. He told everything to Sister Jing. The reason why the drunkard fainted was because he participated in a live-action game. It was okay if he didn't explain, but it actually made Jing Jia more confused. The door of an elevator suddenly opened in the distance, and the two of them were preparing to take the elevator to leave. However, they found that the elevator could not start. Yuga took out the CRS key and actually started the elevator. However, during the elevator's ascent, there was a malfunction. The two climbed out through the warning channel, but only after coming out did Yuga realize that this was actually the headquarters of CRS. Yuga was a bit angry at this time. This is not a game, it is simply deliberately arranging some unexpected pranks on himself. At this moment, Sister Jean accidentally triggered the alarm, and a group of security guards inexplicably released police dogs to chase the two people. In the end, the two climbed to an abandoned building and jumped into the garbage bin downstairs, only then did they escape. Yugo has never been so embarrassed before, and his games have also caused Jean Jia to suffer. He brought Jean Jia back to his office, asked her to wash up, put on clean clothes, and personally escorted her away. Before leaving, Jean Jia confessed to Yugo that someone at the restaurant gave her $400 tonight and asked her to sprinkle wine on Yuji's body. Thinking of the two of them sharing hardships together tonight, Yugo didn't mind either, but what he didn't know was that everything tonight was just the beginning. The next day, Yugo returned to his original hotel and upon opening the door, he saw a scene of indulging in a frenzy. Not only are there prohibited items on the table, but there are also many revealing photos on display. A photo of a red underwear is particularly eye-catching. Before Yugo could understand what was going on, the hotel cleaning staff were about to enter the room, which scared Yugo and he quickly closed the door. If someone sees such a scene, they still have to be ruined by their reputation. He only checked out after tidying up the room himself. When leaving, Yugo noticed a car tracking him. He drove the car into a dead end and stopped the other person's car. He held down the driver and asked why the other person was tracking him. The driver wanted to argue, but the co-pilot Yuji's information exposed him. Yugo also found a gun on him. He thought this was also CRA's game, but he didn't expect it to be a real gun. The other party was also scared by Yuga's daring to shoot, and immediately confessed that he was a private detective. Someone sent him to monitor Yuga, so he ran away without the car. Recalling the previous hotel incident and the private detective, Yugo suspected that Old Do had deliberately arranged everything because he wanted to dismiss him. Old Do wanted to ruin his reputation first, so he drove directly to Old Do's house, pushed open the door, and cursed loudly at Old Do. However, Lao Do told Yugo that he had just signed a resignation agreement with your lawyer and planned to take his family on vacation tomorrow. He also asked Yugo if he wanted to have dinner together tonight. Yugo saw the lawyer confirm that he knew he had misunderstood labor and awkwardly apologized for his reckless behavior just now. After returning to the office, Yugo took out the termination agreement given to him by the CRF and asked the lawyer to go to the CRS headquarters to terminate the game. But when the lawyer opened it, it turned out to be a blank piece of paper with a handle inside. Originally, this agreement was written by CRS in invisible ink, which means that once the CRS game starts, there is no intention of ending it for you. Hugo looked at the photo of the red underwear in his hand and remembered Jean Jie. He asked the lawyer to investigate Jean Jie's address and then returned home. However, he did not expect that his own home had also been intruded into. Not only was the electricity damaged, but various graffiti were also painted on the walls. Previously, someone had stuffed an envelope on the puppet, which read that Hugo would die like his father did. There was also a photo of Yuji's father's death behind it. This is already a life-threatening situation. Yuga immediately called the police and claimed that his home had been broken into. However, the police asked Yuga, "Are you sure the intruder has left? Are you sure there's not still someone somewhere in the house?" Coming out, his younger brother suddenly appeared, which frightened him greatly. However, his condition at this moment was clearly not right. He asked Yugo to drive him away, and as soon as he got in the car, he became suspicious. After dismantling the communication equipment in Yuga's car, his younger brother panicked and apologized to Yuga, saying that Yuga should not be allowed to join the CRS club. He himself was about to be messed up by the CRS company. He had already paid, but the other party continued to harass him to death, forcing him to come up with more money to stop playing. Just as he was speaking, the tires suddenly burst. Yuga got off the car to change the tire, and his younger brother opened the passenger drawer. However, a pile of CRS keys fell out of it, which made him think that Yuga and CRS company were in the same group. He turned around and ran. Yuga chased after him, only to hear his brother's voice accusing him. He hates Yugo playing the role of a father, directing himself and wanting to control his life. It seems that he has long harbored resentment towards Yugo. After his younger brother left, Yugo didn't want to mess with his car and just called a taxi to prepare to go back. However, this taxi was actually arranged by CRS in advance. After the driver drove the vehicle faster and faster, he suddenly jumped and directly let the taxi rush into the river. As the river water was about to fill the entire carriage and the car door couldn't be opened, Yugo remembered the handle in the envelope before and used it to open the car window. Only then did he escape into heaven. Noticing that CRS games were becoming increasingly excessive, Yugo couldn't bear it anymore and directly reported to the police. "I only realized when I arrived at the headquarters of CRS that this place was already empty and empty. The administrator of the building stated that this floor has never been rented out, and the government department has not found the registration information of CRS company. Because Yugo voluntarily hired these people to play games, a series of incidents that occurred were at most considered pranks, and the police were unable to file an investigation as a result. Fortunately, Yugo received a report from the lawyer at night that Jean Jie's home address had been found. He went to Jean Jie's house and took out a photo of the red underwear, asking Jean Jie if everything had anything to do with you. But Jean Jie said that there are many people wearing red underwear, and her figure is clearly much better than in the photo. Yugo also suspects that she is too sensitive. But just as Jean Jie went to pour water, Yugo noticed something unusual about the house. This house has no water in the sink, the refrigerator is also empty, and the books on the bookshelf are all paper cases. Even photos of Jean Jie's childhood were cut from magazines. He questioned Jean Jie about what was going on, but Jean Jie quietly told Yugo that she was being monitored and the smoke alarm above her head was a camera. Yugo ignored Jean Jie's warning and smashed the monitor with a stick. As a result, the CRS personnel arrived fully armed. Without saying a word, they shot into the house. Yugo followed Jean Jie out of the house and drove away. In the car, Jean Jie also told everything to Yugo. It turned out that he was a small employee of CRS company. Everything Yuga has been going through recently is a collusion between his younger brother and CRS, with the aim of defrauding Yuga of billions of assets in his account. The company has inferred the password of Yuga's bank account based on the psychological testing he conducted when he joined the club. Now that they have received the money, the final step is to kill Yugo. Upon hearing this, they immediately called the bank, provided their Swiss bank password, and asked the other party to check their account. As expected, the account is already empty. He drove the vehicle to a manor in his suburbs, and Jean Jie poured a glass of water for Yugo to comfort him. At least they are still alive now. At this moment, the lawyer called Yugo and told him that there was not a drop of money in his account. Yugo immediately knew what was going on and was about to challenge Jean Jie, but suddenly felt dizzy. It turned out that Jean Jie had drugged the cup of water he had just received. Jin Jie had already found out about his bank account and password when he called the bank to inquire, and the person who answered the call was also from CRS. When Yuga woke up again, he found himself in a coffin and sent to Mexico. He crawled out of the cemetery, seeking help from people on the roadside, and finally found the embassy. However, Yuga was not only penniless, dressed in tattered clothes, but also without identification, and was refused help by the embassy. He had no choice but to sell the watch left by his father, which barely caught up with a car returning to the United States. After many twists and turns, Lala finally returned home only to find that the mansion had already been put up for public auction. He flipped into the yard, took a shower first, and then found his previously stored pistol from the bookshelf, intending to go to his younger brother to settle the accounts. However, he found out that his younger brother had been sent to a mental hospital by the police due to mental illness. Under a desperate situation, Yugo remembered his ex-wife. Perhaps the only one around him who was willing to help him now was him. My ex-wife has never seen such a disheveled Yuga before. He treated Yuga to a meal and promised to lend him his car. From a wealthy family to now having nothing, Yugo also understood his own problem. Even if he didn't only focus on money in the beginning, he chose to care more about the feelings of the people around him, so as not to let his ex-wife choose to leave him. Nowadays, no one yearns for his sincere apology to his ex-wife. At this moment, an advertisement on TV caught his attention. Isn't that actor Jim, who was in charge of receiving him at CRS, the same person who was in charge? Thinking of the Chinese restaurant that Jim mentioned earlier, Yugo immediately went to investigate and was finally found by him. Jim was very nervous when he saw Yugo. He explained that he only took on a job at the beginning, and that the headquarters of the CRS was actually their entire building. They just changed floors and worked at any time. Yugo held a gun and asked Jim to take him to the headquarters of CRS. As soon as I entered, I saw all the employees of CRS here, along with many familiar faces. Even the 2 old members I met at the bar were CRS employees. Yugo was furious when he saw Jin Jie and threatened Jin Jie and himself with a gun. However, the security personnel of CRS immediately chased after him. Yugo could only bring Jin Jie to the rooftop of the building, and he used a gun to force Jin Jie to reveal the mastermind behind the scenes, otherwise he would have killed Jin Jie. Originally, Jin Jie wanted to continue acting, but when she saw the gun in Yu Ji's hand, Jin Jie panicked. Second elder sister, where'd you get the gun? This is my gun. You researched those? Well, I guess you missed this, didn't it? Jian Yugo really planned to shoot, but Jin Jie quickly explained that the security guards actually had empty bullets in their guns, and all of this was part of the game. Your younger brother has already opened champagne and is about to celebrate your birthday, but Yugo, who has been deceived one after another, no longer believes Jin Jie's words. At this moment, the door of the rooftop is about to be opened. Unexpectedly, Jin Jie did not deceive Yugo this time, but Yugo had already settled into Kong. Jin Jie rushed onto her younger brother to prepare for rescue, but it was too late. Her younger brother had already died, and Yugo only cared about money before. Now he has realized that he wanted to return to his family relationship, but he personally killed his only relative. He threw away his pistol, walked up to the rooftop, chose the same way as his father did back then, turned around, and jumped down in one fell swoop. Take a line. Medical staff rushed up to check Yu Ji's physical condition, while all of Yu Ji's relatives and friends were in this banquet hall. They stood up and applauded for Yugo. It turned out that this was the official end of the game, and his younger brother did not die. This was the birthday gift he gave to his brother. The one just now, memories of childhood flashed through Yu Ji's mind, as warm and transparent as in water. When it pierced through the dome of the hall, it also shattered his exhausted and unruly heart. At this moment, Yugo is truly a survivor, burying all his past experiences and facing a new life. At the end of the story, Yugo caught up with Jin Jie, who was preparing to leave, hoping that the two of them would have the opportunity to have dinner together. Obviously, Yugo and Jin Jie will also develop a new relationship. To be honest, Sure doesn't like the final happy ending. If the movie ends abruptly after Yugo jumps downstairs, I would love it even more. Am I too dark?